Yankees are playing such terrible baseball right now, post All-Star break. And the question is, what's going to happen with Juan Soto come the offseason? You traded for him. He has not signed a hefty contract just yet. So now there's question marks all over the room. And I don't know what you do with this. But, I mean, look, we could spend all day poking up on the Mets, but I'm telling you right now, they're playing the best baseball, and I think that was a fuel of fire to get Francisco Lindor going. They're clearly not going to trade away JD Martinez. I think we all knew that, and I loved that signing when they got him because they needed somebody to charge up that roster. And finally, they found somebody that can. So, but the Mariners do need somebody to spark up that offense. If it were me, I'm looking all around. I think you can very much make a phone call to Arizona to maybe potentially get Jock Peterson to spark this offense because it is not doing anything for them. And they just designated for assignment and they let go of Ty France. He has not been able to pick up where he left off. And so this Mariners group, and like this Mariners franchise, middle of the pack, if not just about average, mediocre, can't seem to understand some of their signings, at least majority of the time, because did you really think Robinson Cano was going to give you a World Series championship? I think not. Okay, he was part of a collective roster with the Yankees because the Yankees always pay for stars. They were third in the AL West or the AL East in 2008 till then 2009. What'd they do? They got rid of the old, bring in CC Sabathia, bring in AJ Burnett, bring in all these stars, and they ended up winning a title. That's just how it is. The Yankees, it's the same DNA. The Yankees, the Lakers, the Cowboys, they all have the same mentality. And so, look, you can't make an excuse of saying, well, they're a kind of a above budgeting team. Look, you got owners that are willing to spend money like this. So go get yourself a power bat because I like this Mariners team, and you just got trumped by the Houston Astros now because you've been on such a mediocre slump. So how do you end up answering back? You got to get power somewhere in that lineup, in the pitching staff, wherever you need to. So the Jets have definitely been the team in the offseason that has been making so much of just the buzz right now. And I'm not sure what to make of them. Aaron Rodgers, Hassan Reddick, all this other stuff. I needed some help to really break this down. So joining me as we're strapping in and taking flight and on their Take Flight podcast, Abby Ramirez joins us here on the show. Well, the things to break down, Abby, is that, I love the pieces the Jets have. But my problem is it's hard for me to take them seriously when it's like Aaron's doing Aaron things. And then you've got other players that now are just, the news has come up of Hassan Reddick not reporting to camp because of maybe potentially contract negotiations and then all this stuff. And I'm like, I feel bad for this defense because it's not going to be the same defense for very long. So when you think of the Jets, this is the most important season I look at it because enough's enough. You ended up upgrading the offensive line to ensure Aaron Rodgers is on that field for more than 5 minutes this time. Hopefully he can get a full season.
A minute and 30 seconds. You stand corrected.
Yeah. So when I think about this, I mean, this is the most important season that they cannot afford any kind of regression, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the New York Jets are all in. Now, for clarification with Aaron Rodgers specifically, because it was huge news that he's missing 2 days of Jets mini camp. And then we find out he's obviously in Egypt. And then, of course, he shows up to training camp in the cat t-shirt, the Egyptian cat t-shirt, which I interpreted as a big F you to everyone who had something to say. But he did clarify on that that he was using last year's schedule to kind of plan the trip. He had this way in advance. He let everyone know. And this was the year where that schedule was different. So he didn't provide all that clarification details, but absolutely, this is a huge year for the New York Jets. Like you said a little earlier, we are the kings of the offseason, and it never translates into regular season play. But like I was all in on Aaron Rodgers last year when we got him. I know we only had 4 plays, but that was just a freak accident. The Jets do have the worst luck, I think, when it comes to injuries sometimes. But yes, the New York Jets are absolutely all in. They have a short window with Aaron Rodgers. He said 2 or 3 years, but he wins us a Super Bowl. He's out. And we paid big money for him. He did take a $35 million pay cut. But this is the year where I think he takes the biggest cap hit. Last year he did it. This year he does. But Aaron Rodgers walking into the building, he looks great. He looks healthy. He looks happy to be back. And I'm happy to have number 8 on the field.
Now, my hope is that, and I'm paying attention because, again, at anybody's age, at past 40, those Achilles, when you suffer an injury like that, it's not the same kind of recovery time as, when you're in your 20s or in your 30s. So sometimes it may develop a little different. So I'm keeping an eye on that because I do want to hope that Rodgers can make this work. So my thing is first of all, I love Robert Saleh. I've loved him since he's been in San Francisco, and to come into a big market in New York and, all the New York media, the slanders and all the rest of this other stuff, I just hope that the cards are in the right place for Robert Saleh. So when you think about the seat right now, because I do think it's a sizzle. I'm not going to say it's like Diablo sauce hot right now because I got to see what the first 5-6 weeks looks like. So when you think about what's the fate in store right now for Robert Saleh, because this is a time for him to really take big strides and for everything to kind of get going. Because at the same time, I'm looking at Nate Hackett, the offensive coordinator, and my hope is they're on the same page and, this team could finally show its potential.
And that's where I'll kind of disagree with you because, to be honest, Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas's seats are hot. And I think if they don't make the playoffs this year, both of them are gone. Absolutely. Hackett's a little bit of a different story because he honestly helped us bring Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, of course, being the quarterback that he is, he does what he wants. And it's already been confirmed from Malachi Corley, who's a rookie wide receiver we picked up in the draft. But that Hackett will call a play. Aaron Rodgers will change it right at the line of scrimmage. So Hackett, I'm not too worried about. But Robert Saleh's seat is definitely, I would say, hot. And so is Joe Douglas. And I hate it because it feels like the New York Jets, the offensive line last year was just like a rolling pin. It's a rolling pin with the number of QBs that we've had in the last couple of years. It seems to be like that coaches as well. But I think last year they got a big break simply because what happened to Aaron Rodgers. And to be honest, now looking back at it, I think we knew that and kind of trashed the season and was like, well, we're going to get by with this year. That is not the case for this year. And I'll tell you right now, I cannot go 14 years without the playoffs. I know you're talking about how terrible the Mariners are, but Jets fans endure a different kind of struggle. It is absolutely insane and ridiculous.
Oh, it's insanity because, look, I've been in New York 6 times in my life. It's a totally different beast out there because, look, you are dealing with national and local news every single morning. You're dealing with Wall Street on a daily basis, which we all know people are always pissed. It doesn't matter what day it is. But, there's high expectations from there. Yeah, the Yankees, the Mets, and then the Giants, the Jets. So they have to get something going from here. So here's my thing is, and I've listed him as one of my top 10 favorite NFL draftees going into this next season. And that's Olu Fashanu. I've been hearing positive stuff coming out of camp like, this kid's different. He's built very strong, but at the same time, he's got good feet. He's got good hand placement and work. So what were your thoughts on Olu Fashanu? Because I felt like that was the perfect fit for me because if after watching Aaron go down with the injury that he had, I need to fix this hole. Because now you get Tyron Smith, you have Elijah Vera Tucker that you had in the past draft, and now in comes Olu Fashanu, and I'm saying to myself, damn, that's a pretty nice O-line. So what were your thoughts breaking down a lot of his work?
Let's go back to the draft and let me tell you how divided New York Jets fans were. You had the people who were going all O-line, and then you had what I called the Bowers boys, and those were all the Brock Bowers fans. And it's crazy because the Bowers boys could not see why the New York Jets would draft someone for the offensive line. It just like blew their mind. I'm like, did you not watch anything last year? I think last year we had 13 different O-line combinations, which was the most in the NFL. So that shows you how terrible we were. And then additionally too, I mean, there was a point we had Xavier Newman and everyone's like, what is this guy, our fourth string? No one knew who he was. Terrible first snap. And we were like, the season's over after that. But I was always big on drafting for the offensive line. I knew it was important to finally keep Aaron Rodgers upright the entire time. That is literally what caused his injury last year. I mean, he was running for his life. So I was happy with drafting Olu. He's huge. He had a great career at Penn State. I think he only had 1 sack. He's relatively healthy. He had a season, I believe. I think it was like in 2022 where he didn't play for most of the season. And I didn't find any details on that. It says like a unknown type of injury, but he's a healthy body, which we absolutely need. And then, of course, he's there on the offensive line with Joe Tippmann, who I think will be an all-pro center. AVT, just never let that man play in Denver again. That is where his injuries came from both years. Happy to have him back, but I'll be honest, I am a little worried. We brought back Morgan Moses, John Simpson from the Baltimore Ravens, who seems relatively healthy. And then, of course, Olu's learning behind one of the best, Tyron Smith, who, in my opinion, I understand why the Jets got him. And when he's healthy, he's one of the best. But as far as injuries on the offensive line, he absolutely 100% worries me more than AVT. I know Morgan Moses dealt with like a shoulder injury last year, but like I said, they've already been in training camp and they're working together, Fashanu and Tyron Smith. And today I woke up to this. Today, Aaron Rodgers, I think the first pass of the game, beautiful touchdown over to Garrett Wilson. And it was Fashanu who was taking that rep. So, like I said, I'm happy to have him. He's quick. Like you mentioned, he's really good with his feet, really good with his hands. He's really good with the pass block, which obviously having Aaron Rodgers, we're going to need. I think the one skill he needs to work on is the run block. But then again, we have Breece Hall, Breece the Beast. They don't call him Breece Lightning for no reason.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Breece Hall. And a side note, I mean, look, now you got me thinking about it because I live in Denver. And so now when I'm thinking about, the altitude and like just different kind of play here, it makes me think a lot about some of these athletes and how they really acclimate to this kind of, altitude. So speaking of Breece Hall, 2 running backs that I know that are coming back from serious injuries, Nick Chubb and Breece Hall, both of them, I think, are kind of in this expectation that we're not sure what production we're going to get, but the hope is they're 110% healthy. The recovery was just where we wanted it to be, and then the run game becomes very viable. Now, in comes Braylon Allen to kind of really solidify a little of like those options. So when you think of the run game for the Jets, because this is going to be important for them because it's not solely just going to be relying on Aaron's golden arm on the passing side. So coming into the 24 season, the run game and the recovery for Breece Hall, are we going to expect this guy coming out of the cage like he's ready to run and he's ready to like really bounce back after sustaining that big time injury he had last season?
Yeah, so Brees Hall's injury was actually 2 years ago. But last season, they didn't really break him out until about halfway through the season. And I actually think it was that Denver game that they finally broke him out. And I think that first game against the Bills when he came back, I mean, you could tell that he was gassed some of the plays. He looked like he was struggling. He should have had a TD run, but that didn't end up happening. We ended up winning that game, so it doesn't matter anyways. But the New York Jets, I mean, if you play fantasy, I would absolutely recommend putting Brees Hall on your team because he is absolutely going to be dominant this year, especially with an offensive line. And the New York Jets are absolutely going to utilize him so much. He's just they're going to pound him into the ground. They're going to absolutely have him running. He's going to be our main guy. He's also going to be really involved in the passing game this year, which Hackett finally discovered that Brees Hall could catch probably last half of the season. But yeah, we picked up 2 running backs this year. Braylon Allen, who's a dog who has been really impressive in OTA so far and in training camp. We picked up Isaiah Davis as well. All good things there. I think the odd man out right now in terms of the running back room for the New York Jets is going to be Izzy Abanaconda. I have, to be honest, heard nothing. It's been totally silent on that front. But yeah, Brees, I can't wait to see what he does with an actual offensive line for the New York Jets.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it, and I really am hoping, and I'm keeping that note, especially when I'm thinking about running backs going into the fantasy season, that I really am hoping that his production is well worth it, and it's something that really helps out for many fantasy teams out there. So some new additions, Mike Williams now, they've gotten at least for a year. And then they go and draft Malachi Corley. So let's start with Mike Williams. Now, for me, outside the mic, I've been a diehard Charger fan since I was 7 years old. And so to see Mike Williams go was hard, but at the same time, injuries really racked up. Now he comes into a Jets offense where there's not a whole lot of pressure. He's a guy that I think the Jets are like, look, just give us the best production that you can, at least from where he's at, with the injury history he's had and what he means to this Jets team, because I think this kind of pulls a little bit of that heat off of Garrett Wilson and a couple of other options there. What did you make of the Mike Williams signing? Because I do think this helps with their deep ball option. And then I also do think he's a guy that when on the healthy side, which is always a narrative, he's just that lethal.
Yeah, and let's go back to last year. I mean, this all came from, I think, Alan Lazard doing so poorly last year. Not only with just the catches, but honestly with the penalties as well. And then we had to rely on 2 undrafted free agents, one of them which is Xavier Gibson. And they really started to utilize him. So they're like, okay, we need to have someone beside Garrett Wilson right there. And that's why we signed Mike Williams. He is actually still not ready for a training camp yet. They expect him to be ready more towards like week 1. But I think he's a great addition. And obviously Aaron Rodgers, it's a passing league now. Aaron Rodgers needs to have open guys. And I think not only is he going to utilize both Garrett and Mike Williams, but also get our tight end room a lot more involved too. Right now we have Tyler Conklin, who I think is very underrated, but last year he had about, I think, 600 yards, no touchdowns though. So I would like to see that being brought up. But I'm still hoping that Alan Lazard has a better year this year. I mean, we signed him to a 4-year, $44 million deal, which I already thought was too much money to begin with. But so far in training camp with practices, he had like 1 drop, I believe. However, he ended both practices with a touchdown catch from Aaron Rodgers. So I'm hoping with Rodgers back, that Alan Lazard will do better. So right now, that's who I'm thinking is the 1 and 2 and 3 guys right now. So obviously Wilson being 1, Mike Williams being number 2, and hopefully Alan Lazard at number 3. But again, you mentioned Malachi Corley. He absolutely just astounding comments from the staff about him. And I've liked what I saw too. I to be honest, wasn't paying attention too much into the later. I was paying attention to the later rounds in the drafts, but not necessarily the picks. And the Jets always do a lot of shifting towards the end. So I know they were trying to get some draft capital there. So, but from the highlights I've seen, I mean, absolute monster. I think he fits in perfectly with this scheme as well. And he's already kind of bonding with Aaron Rodgers and some of the other teammates, which I think is absolutely great as well.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like when Malachi Corley got drafted, it almost felt like last year Denver's pick with Marvin Mims, because it was somebody that was under the radar. Nobody really kind of seen a whole lot of film on, but by the time he came out, this was a promising pick that really is going to hopefully uplift, the Broncos. But then when you look at Malachi Corley, hopefully I think the same thing. I think he'll definitely uplift this wide receiver room. So I was kind of breaking this down on the show in the last couple of episodes, and this is an all-in season. I think we kind of understand that. But I try not to be the negative Nancy of everything, but for me, I try to find the silver lining of everything. That's what the show's based upon. And if this does not work out with Aaron Rodgers, give or take whatever happens, whether it's a successful or maybe it's something different. But I know they end up bringing in Tyrod Taylor, and then they end up drafting Jordan Travis. Do you think that if the dominoes don't fall on their court, do you think the Jets and Joe Douglas and Woody Johnson, they're probably going to think of this thing like, we may need a quarterback? Or do you think they might actually trust with who they have in-house with as far as the Jordan Travis pick?
Let me tell you, with Tyrod Taylor, he actually at practice today had 2 interceptions, and one of them was from our rookie cornerback, Stiggers, I believe is his last name. So he didn't have a great day today, but I'm glad we finally invested in a backup, because obviously that was our Achilles heel all last season, as we saw with Zach Wilson. As far as the quarterback room, I can tell you right now, I don't want to draft another quarterback at all. We haven't had the luck in drafting in the first round. Where has that gotten us? I mean, Sam Darnold and Zach Wilson most recently. So what I'm hoping that can happen is that Jordan Travis can learn from Aaron Rodgers at least the last 2 or 3 years that he has, because that is going to be the little bit of the window, and that he can finally rise to the occasion and step up for the New York Jets. The thing with Jordan Travis right now is he is not on the rehab timeline as good as they thought, so he's going to take longer to rehab. But again, I think that rest, and then again, learning from Aaron Rodgers, and then Tyrod Taylor's a seasoned veteran as well. So I'm hoping he can step up and be that guy, but I'm always you never know with the New York Jets. You always have to keep your options open. So of course, I'm fully expecting to potentially have to draft another quarterback. But I think a lot of the fans were very big that we got Jordan Travis. I hated how that season ended, but I liked everything that I saw from him the whole rest of last season.
Oh yeah, no, it was a harsh injury. And again, when you it was just so daunting to me that the fact that Florida State would ever use the word travesty in their entire season. And I'm like, no, losing Jordan Travis was a travesty, not the entirety of the season, because we all kind of knew that after Georgia kind of reminded. But anyway, so lastly, before we let you go, because this was an important one, because I think this builds a lot of clarity for a lot of fans, because here's the thing. I've been on so many different lives. I've been in so many different places, and I understand fans are going to be fans. Get everything out now before the season starts. That's how I am. But I don't think this AFC East that most people think is a cakewalk. I think because, look, the Bills and Josh Allen, like, people kind of disregard the fact that Josh Allen, when guys were hurt, he didn't even have all these big name weapons, but yet somehow, some way made it work. We know Tua is on a contract year with the Dolphins, so who knows how that is going to end up panning out. And then obviously the Patriots are on a rebuild mode of their own. They got a new coach, they got a new quarterback, they got all this other stuff. People are thinking it's going to be that easy for the Jets. In your honest opinion and your breakdown of the season prediction, where do you think you kind of see this season rolling on with the Jets? Because I don't think this is in my personal opinion, I don't think this is going to be as a cakewalk as people are looking at it.
It's absolutely not. The AFC East is still a competitive division outside of the Patriots, of course, but the Patriots still have a very good defense. I've seen predictions for the Patriots. I'm still giving them ceiling 6 wins, but at least 4 wins. I don't think they're going to be absolutely terrible. But as far as the AFC East goes, I'll be honest, I'm glad you pointed out Josh Allen because this is apparently a hot take, but I still think the Buffalo Bills are the biggest threat to the New York Jets when it comes to winning the AFC East. They've won it the last 4 years. You just mentioned Josh Allen. It's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks I've ever seen. And I know he has an issue with turnovers, but when you throw the ball up in the air, that's kind of what you have to expect at the same time. It's 50-50.
That's right.
So I do still think the Bills are the biggest threat, and I'm giving them their credit. And I think this year will be Josh Allen's year to prove, is he that guy? Is he that quarterback for the New York Jets? For the Buffalo Bills. Now, in terms of the New York Jets, they haven't won the division in, I think, the last decade. So this is definitely something that is not going to be a cakewalk to them at all. And with so many primetime games in the first half of their season, I mean, I'm worried about that because what you don't realize is the turnover time sometimes between the games. There's one time where it's like 4 days, then it's 7 days, then it's 8 days. And that first half of our schedule is what I think is our toughest part of this of our season. And then it kind of gets a little easier as we go on throughout the year. But yeah, I think the Jets, as far as record, it's fair to give them 11-6. There are going to be some of those like sleeper games, but I see the Jets at 11-6. I can see them ideally at 12-5, which is where I would feel more comfortable at. And then I can actually see a situation where they actually tie with the Buffalo Bills. Now, in terms of Miami will get off to another hot start. They always do, but that's how their schedule is this year. They have an easier first half. Their back half is absolutely awful. I mean, they're facing teams like the Niners, and then you got Green Bay in there, and then they face the Jets twice in a matter of a month, all at the end of the season. So I think right now, in terms of Miami, I think they're going to be the ones to step back in the AFC East, even though they have, Tyreek Hill, even though they have Waddle, and I may pronounce his last name wrong, but Achane as well, and they got Tua, but I think they lost a lot of components as well. But with the divisional games, you never know how they're going to go. I would like the Jets to sweep the Patriots. And if they're as good as they are, they should. But you just never know. And then again, I pointed out, we've faced Miami. The Jets faced Miami within the last month of the season, one of them being week 18. I can see that being a game where it's win and in sort of deal. We just obviously saw that we played the Buffalo Bills Monday Night Football. We got the classic jerseys that we're wearing for that one game. So there's always so much hype. But as of right now, I'm still giving the Bills credit where credit is due. Again, they've won the AFC East the last 4 years, but I can tell you right now, I've already made a bet that the Jets are going to be first in the AFC East. But like you said, it's no cakewalk. But if this roster is as good, they're good on paper. If that translates over to the field, I mean, I can't wait to see what this team does.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I'm so glad that you brought the clarity in the room with it, because a lot of people are thinking, well, Diggs is gone. Yeah, but their only percentages of playoff contention only dropped 10%. That just tells you how important Josh Allen really is on the Bills. But I like it. 11-6. My thought is it could be 11-6, 10-7. I had this take that I feel like this season we might get a bunch of 10-7 teams, and I think we might be in the repeat. And I cannot remember the year when we had 3 9-7 teams, and the Bills went into the playoffs, and that was excluding the Chargers. I feel like we might actually have 4, maybe potentially 5 teams this year, because that's how the AFC is built. So
look at the AFC North. I mean, that is going to be a fun division to watch. Oh my goodness.
It's a bloodbath in the North, because it's like, I've got defense, I've got quarterbacks. The Steelers did the right thing getting Russell Wilson, because you're not going to walk into a season mediocre at quarterback. You just don't do that when you got Joey Burrow, and you've also got Lamar Jackson, and and the Browns, like, no way I'm settling on mediocrity.
And then Mike Tomlin, he always finds a way to win. And it matters about coaching as well. I mean, to be honest, I saw the Chiefs do it last year. I felt like they did something with a whole lot of nothing, and they made it work. And obviously to the Super Bowl, they didn't have an easy road ahead, but I think coaching matters. I think playoff experience matters. Those things are a little bit of a factor as well. But again, quarterback makes a difference. So you're absolutely right. Russell Wilson going to the Steelers was absolutely great. And then I still think Justin Fields has a lot of potential. And I think he can learn a lot from Mike Tomlin as well.
Boy, I watched that deep ball bomb that he ended up throwing in training camp. I was like, you still think he is a kick returner after that throw? I don't think so. I'm still putting him at quarterback. A quick note before letting you go. What's the latest you're hearing right now with the Hassan Reddick thing? Because I thought this was something that just came out of left field. And I'm like, look, okay, I understand the Aaron Rodgers thing. I understand, all this other stuff. But then in comes Hassan Reddick. What's the latest you're hearing right now?
So from what came out yesterday, obviously, let's go back to April when we got him. The Jets offered him a contract. He declined that contract. It was a little more than what he was guaranteed to make, and they added a bunch of incentives. He still declined, and the New York Jets were like, hey, we need to see more still. So show up to OTAs, show up to training camp, and eventually maybe we can get something done in season. And Reddick agreed to that. Obviously, it's a handshake, but where this comes in a little bit is I talked about in my last video on TikTok, we traded JFM over to the Denver Broncos. And I think that's what Hassan Reddick, where he got a little bit of leverage. And then he's like, oh, well, now we can get money out of them because they need somebody. Our D-line took a little bit of a step back. And so he hasn't reported to anything. And as of today, the Jets actually put him on the non-reserve list. And so he's not going to show up. And it looks like right now he has no intentions of showing up. And from what I've seen on social media too, Reddick seems to be very quiet. He's not saying anything. He did have a youth camp and was repping, of course, New York Jets gear, which I appreciated. But it seems like right now he has no plans to show up, and the Jets aren't expecting him either. So unfortunately, Reddick, it seems like walked it back a little bit on the deal. But at the same time, it seems like the Jets were just so upfront about what they wanted. And it seems like, dude, just show up to the building and then we can already start talking. They just want him to show up. But instead, he's completely nowhere to be found. I am not surprised that this happened. Players do this all the time. And why do you think the Eagles were so happy to be rid of him? Because they knew this was going to happen. But I think it's in both parties' interest to figure something out because they need each other. The Jets, obviously, it works better when they have a rotational defensive end. And right now you're relying on Jermaine Johnson II, who's an absolute beast. I think he's going to have a big jump this year. But you're also relying on Will McDonald. And he is the draft pick from last year who looks like he's going to be absolutely great as well. But as far as the defense, it makes us better to have that rotational guy, which of course is Reddick. And Reddick needs us as well because I believe, and I may be wrong here, I was still finding more information about this, but in order to hit free agency, he needs to play a certain number of games in the season. So they both need to come to an agreement. And now, again, Reddick wants 25, 28 million. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we can get him close, maybe 20 million. Again, adding some of those incentives, more guaranteed money. But this is not surprising, but it definitely is frustrating for Jets fans right now. I mean, you have Jets fans calling for his head. Trade him. We don't want him. And trust me, if we didn't need him now, I would say the situation would be a little different, but we do need him, and we're just going to have to see what happens. Unfortunately, this is one of those ones that we're going to have to be patient.
Man, love it. Abby coming in strong in the clutch, providing some clarity to get the smoke up out of the air, and I loved it. I'm glad that we were able to at least have a silver lining understanding what's going on with the Jets, and hopefully now, I mean, yeah, they figure this out. They go into the season with a chip for them to potentially be, because I do see the Jets potentially as a playoff team. Because now that they added this, there's going to be many teams that are going to be fighting for those spots. And so hopefully it's in the Jets' corner. And I do think Aaron Rodgers, if all things go smoothly, I think they're definitely viable of being a playoff team again. Appreciate
Well, I'm glad you agree with me because you have those fans that just hate Aaron Rodgers and wish he gets hurt again. And I'm like, come on, we want to see if he can do what Tom Brady did. Can he take us to the promised land? And you know what? I think a lot of people, there's so much hype around last year. I just think so many people expected more and not 4 snaps. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, like I said, my hope is, and I mean, I'm going to be flying all up and around. So, and look, I fly with United, so I'm taking flights, and I'm ready to just see exactly what the storyline is going to be and how everything is going to really mesh together for the Jets. Appreciate you coming on by, Abby. Where can people find you? Because you are always coming in clutch, and hopefully this is not a just end the season. Hopefully they could just end the suffering after all of this. Where can people find you to get locked on in the Jets?
Yeah, so a couple of different channels. I'm obviously on TikTok and Instagram, and that's my handle right there in the corner, that ab602434. And then my podcast is Take Flight Talk with my boy Woody. And if you're a really big Jets fan, my boy Woody as well partners with Boy Green Weekly as well. So that's Take _flight_talk_ on Instagram.
Oh, there you go. See, between you and Fireman Ed, that's always bringing in the fire for the season. I'm really, yeah, he's amazing. I mean, yeah, this is going to be an interesting season, but I'm excited. I'm glad football's back and training camp is just looking absolutely fantastic. So appreciate you coming on by, and we'll see exactly what the Jets look like this upcoming season. Take care of yourself.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, and go Jets.
There you go. Yeah, it really is. It really is an interesting season for the Jets.